Joining us now is the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg. Treasurer, thanks very much for your time. First up, the banks not listening. You, the Governor of the RBA, have criticised Westpac and ANZ for not passing it on, but it doesn't change much.
Well, the National Australia Bank and the Commonwealth Bank have both passed through in full to the customers the 25 basis point rate cut, and I think that is significant. It's disappointing that the ANZ only passed through 18 basis points and Westpac 20 basis points, but the overall message for households and for businesses is that they'll see lower interest payments as a result of the RBA's decision. This was the first rate cut in nearly 3 years, and if you're a mortgage holder with a $400,000 mortgage, this could be worth $60 a month to you, or just over $700 a year, and that's not insignificant to help meet the cost of living pressures.
As you say, a new record low, the first time the RBA has moved in almost 3 years. Is this what a healthy economy looks like?
Well, the fundamentals of the Australian economy are sound, and you saw that from the Governor's statement. He said that employment growth was strong. He said that there wasn't a deterioration in the economic outlook. And he did point, though, to the challenges we're facing both domestically and internationally, particularly the escalation in global trade tensions. But what we've seen, Laura, over the last year is 320,000 new jobs being created, 8 out of 10 new jobs being full-time, and over 1.3 million jobs being created during the Coalition's time in government. Our AAA credit rating has been maintained. We're one of only 10 countries in the world to have a AAA credit rating from the 3 leading credit rating agencies. We're in our 28th consecutive year of economic growth, and we've got a pro-growth agenda as laid out in the budget, particularly with the tax relief, with the $100 billion of infrastructure spending and the 80,000 new...
On the infrastructure spending, how soon does that kick in? Because the RBA has made it clear they want some structural improvements as well. This is the big one on your agenda, but a lot of it is in the out years in terms of your spending projections.
Well, Kieran, of the $100 billion, nearly $50 billion is in the forward estimates. There are projects that are already turning the sod. I mean, look at what we're doing, for example, with the second airport in Sydney. And we've got, obviously, Snowy 2.0s being another major infrastructure project.
Can you expand it and expedite it?
Well, we've got major projects underway. We'd like, for example, to build the East-West Link. We just need Daniel Andrews to give the OK to that, and we've got $4 billion waiting
So you still need him to give the OK.
Project.
That was a promise during the election campaign that you'd build it no matter what.
No, we made it very clear, Laura, that obviously this project was a priority for us. We'd taken it to the 2 previous elections, that we'd been successful with the Australian people, but Daniel Andrews has said that he wouldn't give the approval. So that's why it's a contingent liability in the budget. It does need the approval of the state government to go ahead, and we'll continue to make the case for that particular project. But as you know, with Victoria, we're working closely with them on a fast rail between Melbourne and Geelong, and we put $2 billion in the budget for that, and we've allocated $5 billion for the Melbourne Airport rail link, which Victorians have waited half a century.
In the absence of tax cuts for the companies, which of course you wanted to extend to all business, why don't you adopt Labor's Australian Investment Guarantee, which allows any size company to claim 20% of assets worth more than $20,000? That seems like a good idea, and it's backed by a lot of business groups. Why don't you adopt that?
Well, it also had been criticised as well. We do have strong support for businesses with research and development, but also at the same time, our focus has been on the small and medium-sized businesses, Kieran. As you know, we've cut taxes down to 25%. We've legislated for those changes for SMEs in the budget. What we saw was the extension of the instant asset write-off to $30,000 and the extension to companies with a turnover of up to $50 million. We're encouraging big business to pay small and medium-sized businesses on time. We've put in place a $2 billion securitisation fund to increase access to finance. We're taking a whole host of measures to strengthen the SME sector because we recognise that's where so many millions of Australians are employed.
There's not many monetary levers left at the hands of the RBA, so it comes down to you and the fiscal levers available to you, Josh Frydenberg. What are those levers? Infrastructure spending being one. Does this also make the need for tax cuts, income tax cuts to be passed, is that any more or less urgent?
Well, it's certainly urgent in that we outlined in the budget $158 billion worth of tax relief. And that followed from Scott Morrison's last budget, where there was $144 billion worth of tax relief, relief that we legislated without the support of the Labor Party. And importantly, we're now calling on the Labor Party to support our tax package as a package. They don't get to pick and choose after the election which parts they support. The reality is the Australian people have endorsed our tax cuts, and these tax cuts are focused on the low and middle income earners. We're creating one big tax bracket, Laura, between $45,000 and $200,000. We're reducing the tax rate to 30 cents in the dollar so that 95% of taxpayers pay a marginal rate no higher than 30 cents in the dollar. This is long-term structural reform which will simplify and strengthen our tax system, combined with what we're doing immediately for taxpayers, with taxpayers who earn up to $126,000 getting up to $1,080 in their pocket, and that's not insignificant for them.
The Prime Minister has spoken very strongly overnight in support of free trade, cautioning world leaders to be more than just the sum of our deals. This is quite a clear crack at Donald Trump, isn't it?
Well, the Prime Minister is making very clear that Australia's interests, and indeed the global economy's interests, are in reducing some of these escalating trade tensions and ensuring that disputes are settled amicably. And the World Trade Organisation is one such body for doing that. And the Prime Minister pointed out in his speech that 1 in 5 Australians are employed in relation to trade, and that we as a government have put a priority on opening new trade opportunities for Australian businesses. And we've done that by entering into free trade agreements with China, with Japan, with Korea, with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and most recently Indonesia. So when we came to government, about 26% of our two-way trading relationships were covered by free trade agreements. Now it's above 70%, and that number will grow. So we want to see the WTO strengthened.
Donald Trump does nothing to do that.
But in the words of the Prime Minister...
He doesn't strengthen it, he weakens it.
But in the words of the Prime Minister, we want to amend and mend the WTO, not end it. And that is really important for Australia to be a good advocate for those changes.
Is the China-US trade war having a real-term effect on our economy now? Are you seeing that in some of the data we're getting through? And what do you expect the national accounts to say today about the growth in our economy?
Well, let's just wait and see, Laura, for that. That will come out later this morning. But in terms of the global trade tensions, yes, it is impacting on the global economic outlook. And again, the RBA governor referred to that in his speech last night at the RBA dinner. And he pointed out that these escalating trade tensions were becoming a real factor for the economic outlook. So we'll continue to encourage cool heads to prevail and continue to push Australia's interests, which is in favour of free trade, open trade, and the amicable settlement of disputes.
Josh Frydenberg, we appreciate your time. Thanks.
Always good to be with you.